Well, guys, this might be one of the most catastrophic things that Donald Trump could possibly do in his first couple months in office. Like, immediately catastrophic. Like, the results bearing fruit within days. And I think that a unfortunate amount of people are actually going to celebrate this if it ends up happening. Many of you might even. Or at least your instinct might be to do so, though you really shouldn't, and I'll explain why. Trump proposes abolishment of federal income tax, bringing the U.S. back to the richest period in history. We're actually going to be reading a Fox Business article about this, because unfortunately, they seem to have been to be the first to the punch to talk about this. So, trust me, we'll be reading this article with a critical eye due to its framing, but the story itself is so important, I feel we gotta talk about it. You know, like, even if Fox is the only one who has gotten to it just yet, we gotta talk about this. So, for those that are not American, though I don't know how I'm sure this is a thing outside of America. I know it's a thing outside of America. If you make an income past a certain amount, your income becomes taxable. And that means, depending on how much you make, what type of work you do, which would qualify you to fill out a certain type of tax form. And depending on what tax form you fill out, this will also determine what percentage you owe in income tax. And these things can be affected by a lot of factors. It can have to do with, like, whether you work like a government job, whether you work as an employee for an employer in a traditional job. If you are like me and you are self-employed, technically, I know I kind of technically work for Google, but legally I'm considered a contractor for Google, so I'm self-employed. I file a different tax form, and I also get taxed at a different rate. And so, like, in America, we've got this system. You make money, and a percentage, depending on how much you make, what kind of job you work, and what you do, and how much you should realistically owe. It's not perfect, but we have a generally pretty good tax system. You owe it to the IRS. You pay it out in April every year, and sometimes you even get your money back. And that's always a good day. This is, without a doubt, the IRS is without a doubt the most profitable agency in all of the federal government. Okay? It is our federal government's main income source. Not only does it fund our military, our road building, our pay for federal employees, and every single thing you can imagine that we need money for to keep the federal government afloat, the IRS pays for just about all of it with our taxes. Now, when you think about it, there's a big conflict of interest here. If you are a multi-billionaire and you make a high income on top of that, you have a very high tax burden. And those taxes are money you're paying into a system that, if you're a billionaire or a millionaire, you practically don't benefit from. You don't benefit from social security programs or social safety nets or free healthcare or even the roads being paved. You can take private jets places or live on a private island where you have, like, an entire private sewage, power, and everything else system going. Like, billionaires have no interest in paying into a system that they don't need and never will. And yet they hold the majority of the wealth, and they should hold the majority of the burden to pay into that system. So Trump and his billionaire cronies have obviously seen the IRS as a great nemesis of theirs. And the idea of practically shutting it down or outright eliminating federal income tax, as fun as that may sound, because we don't gotta pay taxes anymore, in about 2 days, you're gonna wish that taxes were a thing, because everything that relies on tax money is going to start failing as it all dries up. This would be catastrophic if it happens. I cannot stress to you enough how bad it would be. And it's obviously, like I said, people will celebrate if Trump goes through with this. People hate the IRS and they hate paying taxes. They demonize it. They say taxation is theft. That is a way more popular idea in America than just with libertarians, right? I don't know. It's just, it's a very, very sad thing that this could be one of the most country destroying ideas that Trump could ever put into action, and people would, very easy to predict that people would clap and cheer for it. Pitching a monumental and potentially controversial proposal to his Republican allies, Donald Trump is seemingly floating the idea of scrapping federal income taxes altogether.
We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens,
Trump said during his conference address in Doral, Florida on Monday. All right. There are levels to the retardation here, okay? 1913 predates America's golden age. So he said federal income tax was a thing introduced prior to America's golden age of manufacturing, high income, housing affordability, the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, or yeah, basically, like those eras that they mythologize happened after the 1913, in case people have forgotten. On top of that, we instead need to be taxing and tariffing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. You cannot tax a foreign nation. The closest thing that exists to the concept of taxing a foreign nation is the concept of the IRS collecting taxes from non-US citizens, which does happen. If you are someone who's, say, British, you come to America, you get your citizenship, and you work here, you will owe taxes to the IRS. And if you renounce your citizenship or move back to your country of origin, you no longer live there, your money you make in the new country you live in can sometimes still be taxable by the US government. And you can be arrested by the IRS and extradited overseas to America if you are not willing to pay your owed taxes to the US government, even if you're not American. That has happened before. That's the closest thing to taxing another country that exists. The reality is that tariffs are taxes on Americans. Because the U.S. government can only tax those who are beholden to their taxes, right? And the only people beholden to those taxes are American citizens and American companies. It is American retailers that are buying stock. I shouldn't say stock because you're going to think like stock market. That are buying inventory from manufacturers, typically overseas in like China, Taiwan. Those are really good examples of like cheap manufacturing locations. They buy their bulk inventory from these places, and when, say, CVS wants to get like a big shipment of Pikachu plushies shipped in from China or whatever, at the customs, at customs at the border, the company that is selling that product in America, in this case the American company CVS, the retailer, has to pay a tax on that inventory they're buying from another country's company. That cost is going to not be taken on the chin by these companies, like CVS, for instance. I don't know why CVS comes to mind, but it just did. Or Walmart or whatever. They're going to immediately pass those costs down to us, and that will result in a direct rise in prices across the board for said products in stores. Donald Trump has said that this is actually a good thing because then people will just buy American instead, but there are countless industries Trump plans to tariff in which there are no American alternatives. And so it's just going to make the only options unbelievably more expensive, especially in the case of Canada and Mexico, where Trump has threatened a 100% tariff. Same goes for Spain, which he mistakenly believes is a BRICS nation. I guess he thinks the S in BRICS stands for Spain. It doesn't. It stands for South Africa. But he thinks it's a BRICS nation, and it's threatened 100% tariffs against Spain as well. So he really doesn't understand what he's doing, but he's so confident that he will I don't. I guess the best way to describe it is like calling someone a retard for not wanting to shoot themselves in the dick and balls while shooting yourself in the dick and balls. It's like he's so confident, he looks down on everyone who's smarter than him, and he will hurt you for daring to speak out against him and trying to make him do something not stupid. What the fuck? True.
It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. You know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs. And that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. It objectively wasn't, by the way, but he thinks it was, I guess.
The first federal income tax was passed on February 25th, 1913, as part of the 16th Amendment. This gave Congress the constitutional authority to levy taxes on corporate and individual income, according to the Internal Revenue Service. Man, I really do, like, wonder what the public reaction was to, like, the first year where they had to pay, like, any percentage of their income to the government. Like, that ship must not have flown over well for people who remember a time when that wasn't a thing. U.S. Treasury data indicates that $4.92 trillion was collected in federal income tax for the 2023 filing year. That is a lot of money that if Trump eliminates federal income tax, the government will no longer have. Rounding up, $5 trillion. That is how much they collected last year. $5 trillion. All of that goes poof without federal income tax. The federal government loses all of that. This is a scary concept. The federal income tax for 2020, but Trump plans to create
a new External Revenue Service.
He wants to call it the External Revenue Service because it's the opposite of internal. I need you guys to understand that these people are retards at the end of the day. They may be evil, and they're intelligent when it comes to being evil, but they are fundamentally fucking stupid.
The External Revenue Service
that would be tasked with collecting revenue from tariffs, economists and market experts seem mixed, with some pushing back and noting that U.S. importers bear the brunt of the cost of tariffs rather than firms overseas. Because you're not taxing firms overseas. You're not taxing other countries. The government doesn't have the authority to do that. That's not what taxes are. It's not what tariffs are. It's not how taxes or tariffs work.
Tariffs are not external revenue.
Wait, I think this might be... No, this is an expert speaking, not Trump. Tariffs are not external revenue. They are taxes on U.S. importers that shrink both the U.S. economy and U.S. incomes. Higher tariffs will create a drag on the U.S. economy and will threaten to offset the benefits of tax cuts elsewhere. They should not be relied upon as a major source of tax revenue. Tax Foundation Vice President Erica York previously told Fox Business. Ironically, prioritizing, if we could make our 5.2 or 5 trillion a year instead of through income tax, through tariffs, that might not be so bad when you think about it. I don't know enough to be able to confirm, like, if there are any downsides, but that would, obviously, we would all be paying a lot more for things, but the taxes would be getting paid for by corporations, American corporations. I just kind of find it funny that in a roundabout way, Trump has made it conservative to conceptually stop taxing and taking income from working class Americans and to instead literally tax corporations for doing business. Really think about that for a second and how, assuming it does not go horribly wrong, that is low-key kind of socialist, in a way, like bordering on socialist, and Trump is very proud about that idea. It's like, it's gonna go horribly wrong, but conceptually, I kind of find it funny how approximate too progressive thought that this is, that like instead of the working class paying into these systems, that it should be these corporations paying into them, because tariffs are literally just taxes on American corporations. That's all it is. That's all they are. And of course those corporations will make us pay more in the long run, but it would still be ramping up and entirely putting the tax burden in large part on these corporations directly, which is surprisingly not, I don't know if it's I guess it's just late stage capitalism, right? Like the theory of late stage capitalism is that at a certain point it starts to destroy itself in like weird ways, because those who are just trying to do everything they can to maximize their own wealth may often act in ways that are not necessarily healthy for the entire market. And Trump is doing exactly that, maximizing the wealth of him and a small group of people he runs with while destroying the market for everybody else. Markets like certainty. So if you tell me a 10% tariff, if I'm in a company like GM, I can handle that. Taylor Riggs, the Big Money Show co-host, pointed out on Tuesday, if you tell me that every month it's going to go up by 2.5%, I have a hard time planning around that, because how do I figure out, do I buy the goods now? What if the tariffs go up? Is it a negotiating tool? This whole idea about eliminating the income tax or redefining it and coming in with a 10% tariff tax and giving an income tax break to Americans encourages them to work more, in my opinion. Encourages them to spend more, in my opinion. Slate Stone Wealth Chief Marketing Strategist Kenny Polcari also chimed in. Now, I don't think the average American is paying that much in taxes individually, especially after they get like their tax refund back and whatnot. And like you gotta be, especially if you're like a working class, like you have a family and stuff, you have dependents, like most Americans, especially those that are arguably the most affected by having extra money, that like really need the extra money, aren't really paying that much in taxes in the first place. So the idea that like a slight difference would increase people's spending enough to reverse whatever harm eliminating federal income tax would have on the economy, which, mind you, it's not the economy that you should be afraid of here, it's the functionality of the federal government. The economy will follow burning in the nuclear hellfire of the federal government of the United States going up. What do you think makes the US dollar worth anything? The federal government saying so. Like, think about it for like a minute. How much trickles down from this situation? Like, if the federal government goes belly up because of lack of income, like everything burns. Everything goes away. There will be no market. The US dollar stops having a value in the entire, you could argue all of global trade and the entire global market goes belly up overnight. So then you end up having a stronger and better economy, Polcari continued. I think the market likes it. This is the type of economist who thinks the more that people are buying, the healthier the economy is. That is not how that works. During his successful campaign to return to the White House, Trump touted plans to impose an across-the-board tariff of 10 or 20%, as well as a larger tariff of 60% on goods imported from China. He also threatened to impose a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, which are both parties of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, a free trade agreement Trump negotiated during his first term as a successor to the North America Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. More recently, Trump also teased moving nearly 90,000 IRS agents. Okay. The Internal Revenue Service has a total of 89,000 employees. That is how many employees they have. Donald Trump recently called for 87,000 IRS agents, he called them. The vast majority of these people work desk jobs, okay? They're not agents, all right? Donald Trump has asked for 87,000 of them to be reallocated from working at the IRS to working as border security at the southern border. Property tax is not a scam. What are you talking about? What? Property tax is not a scam. You realize property tax is the main way that you pay for your local schools, right? That's why, like, schools in shittier, lower income neighborhoods are shittier, because the people there are paying less in property tax, and so the school has less money. Property tax is not a scam. What are you talking about, you fucking idiot? Anyway, as I was saying, you have to own land to have to pay property tax too. So you're cringe. You're cringe, bro. The people who are paying property tax can afford to pay property tax and pay for people's schools. I'm not arguing with people who unironically think taxes are useless, okay? But yeah, that is the long and short of the situation. Donald Trump wants to basically axe the IRS, axe federal income tax, and nuke every route through which the U.S. federal government makes money as part of his goal of quote-unquote downsizing the federal U.S. government. All the while, mass firings are happening, hiring freezes have happened, and God knows what is going to come from this when you consider how many people working in the federal government it takes for our entire country to function. Let's see how long it takes for everything to collapse now, because it really seems like it's imminent now. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, though. Who knows? Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, enjoyable, educational, or in any way just worth watching, then please consider leaving a like and a comment. It really does help immensely. Whether you're watching live or after the fact, there is no better way to support my content than that. Every single thumbs up and every single comment in real time forces YouTube to push my stuff in the algorithm to new people, so I really do appreciate it, as always. Consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications, so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you can follow my social medias linked down below in the description of all my streams and videos as well. And finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me, though, I really, really do appreciate it, as always, and I hope you have a good one.